replicate Scotch whiskey and just make a Japanese version of the Scotch whiskey. Now he wanted to do that by doing it in Japanese terrain and following Japanese traditions. So he picked up a little farmer town in Yamazaki that basically is a congregation of 3 types of rivers, and is very, very popular or very famous around Japan for having a really good temperate weather and a lot of humidity in there. So Yamazaki, in the beginning, around when they first started, they released the first single, the first blend in around 1928. In 1928, that whiskey in itself, it was a Suntory yellow, and he actually didn't get a lot of good response to it because it was too much like a Scottish whiskey, and Japanese palate at the time was looking more subtle flavors, kind of like more like tea and sake. So later on, about 4 years later, he released the first blended whiskey that it was called the Kakubin, and that's basically one of the best-seller Japanese whiskies of all time. Now, they didn't stop producing single malts till the 80s. As a matter of fact, the current CEO, they say that the 80s for Yamazaki was probably one of the best decades they ever had. Not only because of the expansion, but they started creating all the single malts and expanding into Hakushu and Chita as well. Now in 2015, something incredible happened, and that's when the Japanese whiskey basically went boom. Jim Murray gave Japanese the Yamazaki sherry cask from 2013 won best whiskey in the world. So that basically started all the curiosity about Japanese whiskey. Is it a whiskey? And a lot of people, I just remember drinking Japanese whiskey and reading all the reviews back in the day, and like people were even they didn't even want to call it whiskey because like a lot of people didn't know what it was, or like is it real, and so on and so on. Anyway, so in 2015 they won, and then after that it's just the whiskey just basically exploded. Yeah, so in 2014 Yamazaki already knew that there was going to be a shortage in whiskey, so they basically started releasing the no age statement whiskies. That's a very controversial subject. We talked about this in a few videos here and there, but it's basically a lot of whiskey drinkers and a lot of people around the world, they like to see the age in the bottle. I personally do enjoy it as well, but I do understand that age does not mean that the whiskey is a better whiskey. The age, Suntory and Yamazaki guarantee you the no age statements whiskies have over 5 to 8 years old, are the youngest whiskies, and they still really focus on trying to release the age statements. But the no age statements allow them for customers to be able to enjoy the whiskies without having to pay the super premium price that comes with the age. We can go about the controversy about the no age statements for hours. I have long discussions with lots of people who have 2 points of view. But regardless of that, the no age statements of Yamazaki and Hakushu, they're delicious whiskey regardless. Now the 12-year-old, I remember being able to buy it for like $70, $80 5 years ago. Now it sells for $300, $400 if you can get it. A lot of the times it's actually sold out. It's just 12-year. I'm pretty sure it's just 100% American oak, ex-American oak, 43% ABV, and it's a delicious whiskey. Regardless of what you say, yes, it is a little bit steep for a 12-year-old, since you can get Balvenie or like great whiskies out there for less than $100. So paying $400 for a 12-year-old is like quite ridiculous, to be honest. But people are paying it obviously because otherwise they wouldn't be charging them for it. Now here we got to taste. You can't really see the color in the bottle since they do a dark color. I'm assuming that is because they don't do any filtering or any chill filtering to the whiskey, so for shelving purposes all the bottles look the same, which I don't mind. It's a great way of just keeping consistency on the product. On the aromas, it's actually quite light. There's a lot of pears and apples, actually green tea as well. And this is basically like the epitome of Japanese whiskey. Something light, easy. Like you can put it with soda water. You can have it on a highball, or you can have it in itself. And also because of the contrast of the seasons in Japan, where you can go from summer to being like 35 degrees to winter being like -10 and -15 degrees, you can have this in summer, really lovely, and you can have this in winter as well by itself. yeah, it's a great whiskey, great palate weight, really complex on the back. You definitely get those subtle pears and apples and like fresh fruits, green tea, but still like almost honey as well. It's absolutely delicious and super complex. Anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video and we'll see you next time. Salam Jabbar.